All right, good morning. We are having our first lesson video in math for our first unit. This chapter is all about decimals, so we're starting simple with adding and subtracting decimals, which I know you already know how to do. And so what do you know about adding and subtracting decimals? Well, your pretest that you took yesterday showed me that you already know that you have to line up the decimals, and then you would add or subtract the digits that are in the same place value position. So if we had a number like 36 and 4/10 plus 3 and 59 hundredths. The trick that I use is I write my first number, 36 and 4/10. Then I put my decimal directly under the decimal and I look at what is before the decimal, a 3. So I put my 3 down. Then I look at what's after the decimal, a 5 and a 9. And I know that I am adding, so then I would add this problem together. So when I start to do that, I look to the right. In the hundredths place, I see a 9, and I don't see anything else above it. Well, we know we can fill that blank space with a 0. So 0 plus 9 is 9. 4 plus 5 is 9. And then I get to my decimal, I have to put it there. If I don't put my decimal there, then sadly the answer will be wrong. So 6 plus 3 is 9, and then 3 plus nothing, 0, is 3. So after lining up my decimals and adding the same place value position, I found that 36 and 4/10 plus 3 and 59 hundredths is equal to 39 and 99 hundredths. All right, so let's practice. I've got two questions here. Find the sum of 23 and 1/10 and 5 and 86 hundredths. The next question says, find the sum of 29 and 64 hundredths and 14 and 7/10. I'd like you to pause the video and try these. And then when you're done, resume the video and see if you get the same answer as me. All right, so I'm trusting that you paused and you tried your problems on an extra sheet of paper, and now we are going to check. The key to remember is we have to line up our decimals. Now, for these problems, am I adding or subtracting? Well, if I look at the words in the problem, I see the word sum. Oop, right, there we go. So I know sum means the answer to an addition problem. I will write my first number, 23 and 1/10, and then I'm going to put my decimal right below it, and I see a 5, and then I see an 86 after the decimal. I am adding because sum means to add. Now I know that there should be a 0 here, so that would be 6, that would be 9. Don't forget your decimal, 8 and 2. So for your first problem, you should have gotten 28 and 96 hundredths. Let's try the second problem. Find the sum of 29 and 64 hundredths and 14 and 7/10. So I'm going to once again write my first number and then put my decimal underneath the decimal. There's a 14 before, and then there's a 7 after. Again, sum means to add. So 4 plus, well, I know there could be a 0. So 4 plus 0 is 4. 13, carry my 1. 14, carry my 1. 2, 3, and 4. And what am I forgetting? The decimal, that's right. Without my decimal, the answer sadly was wrong. So 44 and 34 hundredths is what you should have gotten. If you didn't get that, pause the video, take a minute and see, where did I mess up? Making an error analysis on your own work can be very powerful. You learn a lot about yourself as a learner or as a mathematician when you stop and try to figure out where you made your error. Because when you recognize that, then you're less likely to do it again. All right, moving on. Once again, I got our reminder of you have to line up the decimals and you need to then add or subtract the digits in the same place value position. Here we have find the difference of 5 and 774 thousandths and 2 and 371 thousandths. And the next problem says 6 minus 4 and 78 hundredths. Well, I know easily what I'm supposed to do on that second problem, so think for a minute about what it means when it says find the difference. If you're thinking that it means to subtract, then you are correct. So here we have two subtraction problems. Let's go ahead and pause the video, try these problems, and see if you get the same answer as me. All right, I'm going to trust that you paused and tried your problems, and now we'll check them. So the first problem, we've got 5 and 774 thousandths, and then I'm going to write my second number, put my decimal underneath. There's a 2 before the decimal, and then 371 thousandths. And I'm subtracting because difference is the answer to a subtraction problem. And notice that my digits are lined up nicely, so it's easy for me to subtract the same place value position. I start on the right. 4 minus 1 is 3. 7 minus 7 is 0. 7 minus 3 is 4. Don't forget your decimal. 5 minus 2 is 3. So our answer to the first problem is 3 and 403 thousandths. All right, the next problem is a tricky one. So I'm curious to see if you got this one right. Our first number is 6. So we'll write a 6. And then, I need to write 4 and 78 thousandths, hundredths, sorry. But where I was putting my decimal down, where do I put my decimal for this one? So where is the decimal in the number 6? Whenever you don't see a decimal, we have a whole number. The whole number is 6. And the decimal always comes after the whole number. So our decimal is after our 6. We can add as many zeros as we want after the decimal, and it will always be just the number 6. So always remember, I think that's one of the tricky things for 6th graders, is that the decimal, when you don't see one, it's there. We just don't write decimals when we write whole numbers. And so it's after the whole number. So our decimal would be after our 6. And therefore, I would put my decimal underneath. My 4 is before, and then I have a 7 and an 8 after. I'm subtracting. So 8. What am I taking 8 away from? Nothing. What number represents nothing? Hopefully you're thinking and you wrote down 0. We need to put zeros here, especially when we're subtracting, because it can get kind of tricky when you're subtracting. Sometimes our brain just moves too quickly and we would just automatically put a 7 and an 8 here. And if you do that, it's not right. So now we need to regroup and figure out, we can't take 8 from 0, and I can't do anything with this 0, so I have to go all the way to the 6. And when I do that, I can make it a 5 and bring that one over to here. And now I can regroup and make that a 9 and make this a 10. So 10 minus 8 is 2. 9 minus 7 is 2. Don't forget your decimal. And finally, a 1. So for your second answer, you should have gotten 1 and 22 hundredths. That one was pretty tricky. If you got 1 and 22 hundredths, you should be proud of yourself. It's been a long time since we've done math like this. So if not, don't be hard on yourself. Always remember that the decimal is after the whole number, and don't forget to put your zeros on top when you're subtracting. All right, so for your work that you're going to be doing on your own, we're going to have some word problems, and they're going to all have addition or subtraction with decimals in them. So I thought it would be helpful for you to have a page, a reminder of vocabulary that you will see in the word problems. For adding, I put sum which is the answer to an addition problem. When you put things together, or when it says in all or a total, something's combined, or something is earned or gained, or an increase, then that means a lot of times that means you're adding. On the opposite side, the difference is the answer to a subtraction problem. When you see words like how much more or how much less, those are the tricky ones. I think that phrase is what stumps sixth graders most. How much more or how much less? That means subtract. What do you have left? What's left over? Minus, decrease, take away. All of those mean subtracting. When you're working with word problems, though, you really want to think about the action that's taking place. So I wrote some action words up here as well. If something is chopped, if we think about that, it's getting smaller. So that means we're probably subtracting. If you tape things together, that means things are getting longer or being put together, so we're adding. Same with glued. If you glue something, it's getting bigger, you're probably adding. Or if you cut things, they're getting smaller, so that means subtraction. But really what you need to think about is you have to read the problem and think about what's happening in the story. Try to act it out in your head to see what's going on. Is something being put together for adding, or is something being taken apart for subtracting? Let's look at a couple word problems. Here we have Tammy had $237.80 in her checking account. She wrote a check for $29.95. What is her new balance? Well, I don't see any of the words that I had in our vocabulary page before. So let's think about what's going on in this problem. If she had $237.80 and she wrote a check, what does that mean? What is she doing? She's spending money. So that means I'm going to have to subtract to figure out how much she has now, because her new balance is how much does she have now. So that means I want to take $237.80 and I want to subtract $29.95. So I want to make sure I line everything up. 29 is before, 95 is after, and I am subtracting. So 0 minus 5. Well, I have to regroup here. 10 minus 5, that's 5. 7 minus 9, again, I have to come over here. 17 minus 9, that's 8. 6 minus 9, I have to regroup again. Borrow. 16 minus 9, that's 7. 2 minus 2 is 0. And 2 minus 0 is 2. So I have 207.85. Now remember, we have a word problem here. So we want to make sure that we have a label and so that I can see that you know what we're talking about. What is 207.85? Well, it's the amount of money she has left. So there's my label, and I can move on. 207.85. And look at this. Tammy had $207.85. Guess we know our answer was correct from the first one. Then she got paid and made a deposit of $96.49. How much is in her account now? All right, so let's think about what are we doing in this problem? What's Tammy doing? I'm not quite sure what deposit is, but you know what I do know? I know that when someone gets paid, they get more money. So this is going to be an addition problem. All right, so we start with our number 207.85. We write down our decimal. What's before it? What's after it? We're adding. 5 plus 9 is 14. That's 13. That's 14. That's 10. And that's 3. All right. Wait, I'm missing something. My decimal goes right where it should be. So 304.34. Wait, we're talking about money. And this is what she has now. She has $304.34 now. All right, let's look at our last one. John solved the problem 8 9/10 minus 3 72/100. His answer was 5 22/100. Does this answer make sense? Is he correct? If not, figure out his error and correct it. All right, so does it make sense? Well, if I'm thinking about my numbers, I like to think just about the whole number, and we have an 8 and we have a 3. And I know 8 minus 3 is 5. And that's close to what he got. So yes, it is a very reasonable answer. Yes, it's reasonable. All right, so is it right? Is he correct? I guess we have to actually do the work to find out if he really is correct. Okay, so 8 9/10, wrote my first number, write my decimal, 3 72. And he's subtracting. Okay, so let's see. I'm thinking ahead and I already know he's wrong and why he is wrong. So first off, we have to put a 0 here so that we can subtract, and then we need to borrow, and that should be an 8, and that should be a 1, and then decimal and a 5. So 5 18/100 is correct. So what did he do wrong? Does anybody know? You think you know? Well, if you look back at the problem before we solved it, we had 8 9/10 and 3 72/100. And one of the most common mistakes when we're subtracting decimals, and there is nothing in this spot right here, a lot of people just bring it down 2. So then subtract, and look what we got. The same answer John got. So he forgot the 0. That was his error. Now, I bet if John sat here and thought about his error and figured out what he forgot, next time he's going to think twice about it so that he doesn't forget. All right, so we've got adding and subtracting decimals. You guys know you line up your decimal, and then you add or subtract the digits that are in the same place value position. So what you might do is pause the video here so that you have the vocabulary in front of you, and then go ahead and start your work. Your work is attached to this assignment. Once you finish it, make sure you push the turn in button so that I can see what you've done and I know that you're finished and I can grade it for you and give you some feedback. All right? Please email me or message me if you have a question or something isn't working correctly, and I'll get it fixed as soon as I can. Remember that I'm teaching all day until 2 o'clock with kids in the classroom, but I still try to keep up with messages when I see them pop up and I get a free moment. So feel free to message me, and good luck.